Again, as with last chapter, massive trigger warning for child abuse, homophobia, transphobia, trauma, and the like. Welcome to Chapter 7 of Hogwarts Bouquet by ElizabethEmerald, a trans Harry Potter fanfic on AO3. Chapter 7 is entitled Home in the Hospital Wing. He used legitimacy on a child. Minerva was almost mad enough to spit blood. Rose is a 10-year-old girl, and he tried to invade her mind. The two witches had hustled Rose out of Dumbledore's office and into the hospital wing as quickly as they could. As soon as they were away from the headmaster, Rose's breath started coming faster and faster. Posy whined as Minerva practically carried an unseeing Rose, getting her comfortable on one of the beds in the hospital wing. The dog stayed with Rose, helping bring her down from her panic attack, while Poppy pulled Minerva into her office, where Minerva immediately began ranting. First time meeting her, and completely destroys her privacy. What kind of cad and coward would do that to her? I told him that she had been through a lot and needed a service animal to help with panic attacks. He knew before we even walked into that door that she was just a scared little girl. Minnie! Poppy wrapped Minerva in a tight hug. I know, okay? It was a vile thing of him to do. But right now, we have that same scared little girl sitting out there on a hospital bed. Do we need to take her and run right this minute? Minerva took a moment to think, pressing her face to Poppy's shoulder. Finally, she shook her head. No, she said. If he knew Rose's old name, he would demand she return at once. I know him well enough, and he knows me well. If he finds out, he would confront me, because he knows I won't let her stay in an abusive home without a fight. Okay, then we need to go out there and reassure Rose that she isn't going anywhere. And if Dumbledore tries something like that again, we'll hang him by Dumbledore Tower by his bollocks. Poppy kissed Minerva softly, both women smiling into the kiss. When Minerva pulled back, she nodded. Then she took a deep breath, quieting the anger in her voice so she wouldn't spook Rose further. The two exited Poppy's office hand in hand. Rose had her face pressed to Posy's back. Her breathing was calmer now, though her hands still shook. She looked up when the two witches returned. Is he going to send me back? Rose said, tear tracks running down her face. No, he is not. Minerva stepped forward immediately, no trace of her previous rage in her voice. Whatever small glimpse he may have seen, he doesn't know who you were. Rose's shoulders dropped in relief. Again she pressed her face to Poppy's side. Rose's shoulders dropped in relief. Again she pressed her face to Poppy's side before looking up with a small smile. At least I hopefully won't have to see him again for a while, she said. That's right, you won't. Albus almost never involves himself with the day-to-day business of the staff. And if I hear about him ever doing that to you again, Poppy immediately covering Minerva's mouth. We're just going to work to make sure that doesn't happen, and be thankful that Poppy here protected you. Posy gave a happy woof, her tail wagging, Rose smiling down at her familiar. Now, how about we get settled in my quarters? Poppy said. Rose topped to her feet, Poppy and Minerva rising at a more reserved pace. Poppy led the way into her office, then she carefully showed Rose how to turn a statue of a caduceus to open the hidden passageway that led to the matron's rooms. Poppy kept her rooms very simple and very neat. In truth, she hardly ever spent time in the rooms when she was awake. While she slept there, the vast majority of her time was either in her office or caring for patients who were in the hospital wing. Any other free time she had spent preparing for future emergencies, prepping potions, practicing spells, researching new methods fresh from St. Mungo's. Then she would take her meals either in her office or at the staff table in the great hall. Minerva showed Rose into the small section that had been set aside for her room. She had changed the layout of Poppy's rooms herself while Poppy was still at the cottage with Rose. Minerva hadn't told her yet, but she had also spent some time in Hogsmeade getting decorations that she felt would be perfect for Rose. The room had the same tall windows that the rest of the hospital wing had. One window still covered in a small flower bed. One had a small rose bush, one had a lily bush, and the last was empty, ready and waiting for whatever flowers or plants Rose wanted to plant. There was a simple bed, patterned after the 4 poster beds found in the Gryffindor Tower, a chest, and a desk. Rose spun in the middle, stars in her eyes as she took in the room. Then she flung herself at Minerva, wrapping herself in a tight hug. Thank you, Aunt Minnie," Rose cheered as she squeezed her. Then she immediately released her to grab Poppy in an equally tight hug. "Oh, this room is so perfect. Thank you, Aunt Poppy." Both witches smiled, tears pricking at their eyes as the young girls smiled up at them. "You'll be staying here for the next year. Then you'll be sorted into your houses, and you'll be staying in one of the house dormitories. But I'll always keep this room available to you if you ever need some time for yourself," Poppy explained. "Before the school year starts, we'll take you to Hogsmeade so you can get any other decorations you need, as well as some more clothes for the year. Then next year, we'll take you to Diagon Alley to pick up some wand. Before the school year starts, we'll take you to Hogsmeade so you can get any other accommodations you need, as well as some more clothes for the year. Then next year, we'll take you to Diagon Alley to pick up your wand and anything else you'll need," Minerva said. "For now, go ahead and get comfortable. Tomorrow I'll take you to the staff meeting so you can meet some of the other professors, and maybe Poppy can give you a tour of some of the rest of the castle." "That would be great. I'm so excited," Rose said. She pulled a small bag that had all her possessions in it over to the chest and began loading things into it. Poppy gently pulled Minerva from the room. They spent a moment in the sitting room, standing hand in hand. "I need to go to my office," Minerva said. She didn't meet Poppy's eyes as she spoke. "There's still a lot I need to prepare for next year's students." Poppy frowned, and when Minerva tried to turn away, she didn't let her go. "Minnie, can you stay here, at least for tonight? I'm not ready to wake up alone yet." Minerva sighed, but there was no annoyance behind it. She kissed Poppy lightly before deepening the kiss. "One more night. I'll wake up to your soft kisses one more night," Minerva said. Another soft sigh crept past her lips, this one marked by her warm smile as Poppy pulled her into her own bedchambers. "All right, Rose, come along," Minerva said the next morning. True to her word, she had woken up with Poppy kissing her shoulder. After they had finally gotten out of bed, the two had enjoyed a calm breakfast brought to them by one of the castle's elves. Rose joined them about halfway through and seemed fascinated by the house elf. Once Posy had smelled it, apparently giving it her seal of approval, Rose felt safe enough to ask for what she wanted for breakfast as well. "We're going to meet the rest of the staff?" Rose asked. Posy came to heel at the mention of others. She was ready to protect her charge, be it from her anxiety or the machinations of old men. "Yes, we are," Poppy said with a smile. "I'll walk with the two of you to the staff meeting, and then you and I can go explore the rest of the castle. I think I'll go take you to meet Hagrid. He's the resident dog enthusiast, and he may have some good advice for keeping Posy healthy and safe here. Maybe Posy and Fang will be friends." "Fang?" Rose asked, trepidation in her voice. She protectively tangled her fingers in Posy's fur. "Yes, Fang is Hagrid's dog, a huge softie. The name is completely undeserved." Oh, good." Rose relaxed, though she kept her fingers on Posy's back. "Let's get a move on. As deputy headmistress, I can't be late," Minerva said, ushering the other two out of the hospital wing. As they walked, Minerva and Poppy took turns pointing out different interesting things along their path. They pointed the direction to the great hall, where they would be eating during the school year. Various classrooms and other offices were pointed to along the way as well. They could see the tops of the Quidditch hoops through one window. Minerva and Poppy immediately got into a small argument about whether they wanted Rose to try out for Quidditch or not. Minerva privately loved the sport, and knowing Rose's family history, thought she would do amazingly well. Poppy, however, had dealt with entirely too many Quidditch-related injuries in her years as matron to ever really enjoy the sport. Rose, for her part, just seemed to be enjoying the good-hearted verbal sparring between the two women. Neither of them were truly angry, and it seemed this conversation was one that they had had many, many times before. Finally, they found themselves outside the staff room door. Minerva showed Rose how to open the door and ordered the gargoyles to allow her in whenever she wanted. Inside was a long table with numerous seats. Already, most of the seats were filled, though there were a few of the staff who hadn't arrived yet. Poppy stepped into the room, following Minerva, and got everyone's attention with a quick hand clap. Okay, everyone, I want to introduce my great-niece. She'll be living with me in the hospital wing for the next year before she attends Hogwarts as a student, Poppy said with a large smile. Just as you would do with any of our students, please keep an eye on her. If you allow any harm to befall her, I will make the rest of your life unbearable, no matter how short that remainder is. Poppy's wide smile didn't slip an inch as she said the last. Instead, she turned aside from the various astonished looks to wave Rose forward. This is Rose Pomfrey, and this is Posy. Posy is Rose's familiar. Posy wagged her tail at the introduction, but didn't move from Rose's side. Rose looked pale, but she still managed to smile and wave to the other staff, though she made no move to step any closer to them. A few astute eyes glanced between the two witches, who had arrived from Poppy's personal chambers together, and the fond glances that passed between them. Mostly these glances came from the other three heads of houses. Well, it is fantastic to meet you, Miss Rose, Phileas said. He genuinely looked pleased to meet her. Severus didn't say anything, though he did incline his head in a brief nod. Minerva tells me that you quite like the garden, Pomona said. Feel free to drop by the greenhouses any time. I always accept another hand in the gardens, especially if you're as good with plants as I've been told. Rose blushed, and Posy wagged her tail furiously. I'd like that very much, thank you, Rose mumbled, though Sprout seemed to hear her well enough. Minerva waved goodbye to the two of them as Rose and Poppy left. She turned to the rest of the staff before taking her seat, pointedly ignoring the knowing looks sent her way. Rose seems to enjoy being helpful as much as possible. Don't be surprised if she comes to you by asking if you need anything. I just ask that you treat her with the same care that you would give any student. If she has any difficulties, send for me or Poppy and we'll help her. She didn't allow the conversation to stay on the gossip of Rose for too long, quickly refocusing to what they could expect for the coming year. Though she would be lying if she said her thoughts didn't drift often to the two Pomfreys, Poppy, and Rose. Thank you for listening to this chapter. Have a wonderful day, and thanks for watching.